Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Arwin, Flatsoid, Chocolate Sane and 10th Man in Discord, in G+, and together with a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Hello.
Ching chong.
What's with all the Mandarin at the beginning of these shows? I don't get it. I'll get filled in hopefully at some stage. Any signs of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve, and projected on us by way of an edge of an Earth curve model we don't claim, based on their weak-ass aspect of their argument that the boats are going over an edge of a curve?
We do. We don't.
We do.
I'm sure they use plane geometry to make measurements.
One at a time.
I'm sure they use plane geometry to make measurements, and as far as I know, it doesn't take curve into account.
They just assume it.
Might be some evidence here.
They just assume it, Flatsoid. So they say they're going to measure a tangent. Well, what's a tangent? Well, it's a straight line that intersects a curve. So they'll assume that the ground beneath their feet's curved, and what they see in their reified physical geometric sphere edge horizon is a tangent point to measure, assuming the ground beneath that is curved. That's what a tangent is, a straight line to a curved surface. So if they say, I'm going to draw a tangent to the horizon, or any object that they're measuring, then they're assuming that there's a curved surface beneath it. That's just begging the question. Any signs of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? Hey, Paul.
But what about this picture?
Hi, Paul.
Hold on. What
Wouldn't you
picture?
first?
That's a guy holding a toilet. He's holding a toilet by his monitor. That's brilliant. Excellent. Mine's better.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you first need a horizon to have a sphere to be able to have axial rotation?
Yeah, you would. That's right.
Hey, that guy with the picture with the toilet has the best seat on the plane.
Boom, boom!
He dropped the truth.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Oh dear.
Which gravity in particular?
How about just gravity? What is it?
I don't know. I don't even think they know.
It's a reification fallacy.
This question always has a pull on me for some reason.
9.8 meters squared.
Yeah, like
By the way,
heavy question.
By the way, I posted a video of smoke
Where is it?
in Master B.
Is it yours?
Yeah, it was actually just for Ed.
I've just got a load of pictures from you.
A bit higher.
Higher. Okay, yeah. Do you want me to play that?
Fun.
Yeah, with the smoke. It
Yeah,
looks like smoke.
does.
Look, I've still got it up. 5 seconds of smoke, right?
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. Do you want to fill in the audience why it's following on from yesterday's conversation where there was an assertion that a guy said, I'm going out for a cigarette, and we're like, oh, is the smoke from your cigarette going to go down, go boom, boom at 9.8 meters per second, right? And the opponent, I think it was Ed, was like, yeah, look at this false equivalence that I've put in the chat. And we're like, no. We've got a specific example we're detailing. Well, no, you must look at this other example where smoke goes down. And we farcically said, oh, yeah, because of course that's what they advise if your house sets on fire, isn't it, right? You do your Spider-Man impression and go on the ceiling to get away from the smoke because it's all going down, go boom, boom.
Nathan, I was actually smoking a vape at that time, and I was actually blowing it down, and it was still floating up and to the side.
Yeah, this 9.8 meters per second force of gravity that's 105 years out of date, superseded by Einsteinian bending geodesics in space-time as a result of the uneven distribution of mass. It's all nonsense. However, any single viable... Go on.
Well,
don't forget,
Go on.
Einstein's one is going wrong now because they're all moving towards entropic gravity.
Hey, Sleepy Moray.
Hey.
Something piqued your interest
Nathan,
because
are
we're
you
talking
saying
gravity.
that the 9.8 meters per second went up in smoke argument?
Boom, boom! You're on fire. Boom, boom!
Smoking.
You're stinking of it.
Right, Anthony.
Yo.
You typically join because you've got a point to add and we're on gravity. I know it's your baby.
It's more generic than specifically gravity. It's like, if I was to tell a story and one part of the story was incorrect or false or inaccurate in any way whatsoever, ballers would be all over it like a rash. And they would use that inaccuracy or that misspeak or that error or lie or whatever, the bit that was inconsistent, they would use that to dismiss the whole story, right? So, for example, if I suggested that I could make an egg move by a little bit of salt in water, and then I used sugar instead accidentally, they would dismiss the whole point, wouldn't they? Because I got a little bit of it wrong. Why is it that when we demonstrate numerous examples where they get their story wrong in numerous places, they just look over it and just pretend it doesn't exist and it's still a ball, it's okay? Like, for instance, if gravity is not a force, that does debunk your whole model. If you can't have gas pressure next to a vacuum without some kind of membrane to separate them, then that does debunk your whole model. You only need either of those two stories and their story's gone. Yet we have to kind of debunk every single element of their story. Otherwise, they just accept that their story's still true. Yet when it's us, and if we get the wrong thing and say salt instead of sugar, they dismiss the whole point that we're making. Why is there a totally massive burden against us compared to the burden against them? We've got to dot all our I's and cross all our T's, but they can be as lax as they want because they're still going to believe that it's a ball and tell people that it's a ball, no matter how stupid, impossible, or unable to demonstrate these points that they ever can be. I just find that it's so hypocritical.
The two descriptions are... Hold on. The two descriptions are turning a blind eye. So when you point out that gravity is not a force and they're claiming it's holding gas here, for example, they turn a blind eye to the Einsteinian replacement. Right? That's the first thing. The other one was majoring on the minors. Shout out to Bible literalist. So if you make a grammatical error when you're describing a complex scenario, then you focus on the grammatical error and then discredit the entire premise of the work. That's majoring on the minors.
Yeah, it's the opposite way around. So they major on our minors, but when we minor on their majors or major on their majors, they ignore it.
Correct. And the reason, or the justification would be their argument and premise and reason we've had to take their argument into paradox, which is to say, well, we assume it's true anyway. We know it's a sphere, therefore I can turn a blind eye to something that I can't necessarily get around because I know it's a sphere anyway. That's their justification.
Anthony, they could only major on our minors.
And the other thing that's interesting is, like, when you get them cornered, and you know they're cornered because, like, you know that they can't get out of the next point. We all know that they're going to deliberately obfuscate and change topics or accuse you of something or ask you where your model is. And, I mean, if you think about it, right, not only if you're on our side, not only are you expected to be an expert in cartography to be able to map out the whole world, right? You're expected to be an expert in absolutely every aspect of physics, rather than accept the possibility that the key 2 or 3 main points of their belief structure might actually be wrong. We've got to demonstrate absolute, precise, extreme, and like PhD standard understanding in all aspects of physics. Otherwise, it's back to the ball. It's like This is ridiculous. What's wrong with just your model's impossible because you can't have gas pressure next to a container? Why do we have to go into all the minutiae of all their arguments and debunk every single aspect of their arguments when it stops at the first hurdle, literally the first hurdle? It's like disproportionately against us, and it's like we have no science, guys, but we know that yours is impossible. So let's supply the little bit of science that we do have and say, well, you guys can't demonstrate gas pressure, it's game over.
Stop 1 second.
But the thing is,
Chocolate, can you not hear me? Hello?
No, I didn't hear you. Sorry.
So, Anthony, you said, how can you have gas pressure next to a container? Therefore, I disregard your entire argument.
Yeah, that's what they do.
But you did, though, didn't you? You did say, how can you have gas pressure next to a container? Therefore, voiding your entire argument.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. If you get something, I mean, we all know the points that are being made on the show, the housekeeping points, and they all devastate their argument. But if you slip up, misspeak, or mispronounce something, majoring on the minor is what they do. But they never do that to themselves. How disproportionate is that?
The burden of proof's very low for them because they've got consensus. You know, remember when we went on Steve's show and the opener was, do you guys actually accept consensus reality or do you accept scientific evidence? And they were like, consensus. And I was aghast because I'd heard it detailed by, what's the guy's name? Infinite Plane Society. Like saying these people believe in a consensus reality. And I'm hearing it and it's just like, nah. Not necessarily disagreeing with it, but you're just like, I haven't experienced that personally. And then when you do, and someone outright says, if we all agree, then it's right. That's what they're saying to us. So therefore, because they've got consensus on their side, it doesn't matter if their argument's defeated. They're like, yeah, but the rest of the world still knows they're on a sphere, so I can just disregard this with a hand wave. Or, more likely than not, just say, no. Or, while you're pointing out how it doesn't work, which causes them cognitive pain, they say no while you're saying it so an audience can't hear it.
Yeah.
Well, apparently we've reached a point in 2020 that now space.com has come out with an article called How to Debate a Flat Earther.
Really?
So, oh yeah. And
why don't we go through that?
Yeah, didn't you see that? The reification. It's a reification cavalry.
it's fun, man, if you want to go through it, because
just someone read the quote.
In one paragraph, it says, to put it bluntly, we know more about the curvature of the Earth than almost any other topic in the realm of physical science. There are so many experiments, observations, and demonstrations that have time and time again revealed the curve of the Earth, and it all starts with the horizon.
It all starts with their physically reified sphere edge horizon debunked by the Black Swan. It starts and ends with the horizon. The horizon's where the lie started, and it's where it dies.
Yep.
Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
Black Swan.
The only evidence of any R would be R Win, and he's in chat right now.
Well, my surname starts with R, that helps.
I'm not the only R out there, but thanks.
Oh yeah, you've got a mate called Arse.
Oh.
What? That was a terrible joke. Tumbleweed.
Well, Arwin, you are...
Can we lay off the Arwin bashing? There's no need.
Bashing?
It's okay, because
Riley,
it was not.
Riley, I sent you the article, Riley. If you want, I sent you the article so you can open up and read it.
What
Share
now?
this to the audience. Do you think? Do the audience tell me in the chat if you want this link to how to debate a flat earther? If you want it, I'll put it in the chat. Just let me know if you do. If not, I'll just keep on with
I bet they
housekeeping.
didn't say join. I bet they didn't say join Nathan Oakley's flat Earth debate and get killed. I bet they said something like appeal to Neil deGrasse Tyson instead.
No, they told him how to come here and die. Go into the debate, having watched this video, knowing that you can assert the horizon's a physical sphere edge. It all starts with the horizon and us assuming it's a tangent point. And it's physical and boats go over it. Right? That's what they'll come here with. to their slaughter.
You mean the one that they say we do
over.
not see the geometric horizon?
That's the one, yeah. They wouldn't be aware that their best of the best is with a hand wave telling us that we wouldn't see a geometric horizon. We wouldn't expect to see geometry, and the physical geometric horizon only exists in the maths. These are paraphrased quotes from their side.
Mm-hmm.
But perspective is not optical.
Yeah, their maths is geometric, so who cares? They're not using optics. 7/6R is not optical, it's geometric.
So no refraction then.
Nah, they'd need R for that. And if they, quote, wouldn't expect to see the geometric horizon, end quote, I think that was Planner Walk. Not that he's the best of the best by any stretch of the imagination, and we could not even really...
And Kosho.
Yeah, these people are pretty low rungs. But nevertheless, that's the concise and unified rebuttal from the Globers. You're not accounting for refraction. We wouldn't expect to see the geometric horizon. Refraction. What, 7/6 of the radius that requires an assumption of a tangent point and physical horizon to give you the R value to base refraction on? Yeah, that implodes your assertion, though. Leaves it untenable mathematically. It's also, thank you to Arwin for pointing this out, a paradox. You can't measure and move a geometric physical sphere edge with R if you can't measure R. It's a paradox.
Yeah, you cannot measure Arwen.
Oh, come on.
I'm sorry.
We only got
Yeah,
halfway. We only got halfway through this one. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
You have yet to see a hypothesis yet.
I'm yet to see any of the observed natural phenomena that they claim that they can. I mean, has anybody ever seen like a dreamy galaxy thing that they described, like a star that's dying or being born? I haven't seen anything like that.
Careful, you're convoluting two things. Has anybody seen whirly lights in the sky? Yeah, I've got a telescope. Well, it's not here, but I have seen that in the past. Well,
what swirly lights have you seen?
My point is that you're then attributing a description to them afterwards and saying, has anybody seen this? Yeah, I can see lights in the sky. Can I see, what did you say, dying stars? Well, why would you assert that a light that goes out is a dying massive ball of gas in a sky vacuum going supernova? Well, those are all descriptions from heliocentrists about heaven that they've never been to.
I read an article about how the Earth was causing the moon to rust. And I was like, really? What's the moon made of? Like, apparently the Earth's causing it to rust. Did anybody else catch that one?
You don't mean go
Yeah,
moldy?
they can tell you anything.
Go mouldy, right?
It said rust. I'm like, oh, really? I thought it was made of rocks.
I thought it was made of cheese.
Could be made of
Buddy, did you check your Skype? Because we got to go through this article. This shit's hilarious.
Yeah, do you want me to put it up?
Come on.
It's the reification.
It's a little loud at my job, so I don't want to stay on the mic too long.
Okay, I mean, I've got it up on screen for the audience's benefit. This is how to debate a flat earther. Yeah?
Yeah.
Very good advice. I think you should all accept this advice. I think you should all come here and tell us how it all starts with the horizon, your physical sphere edge. This bit.
Yeah.
This bit, right? The limitation of where you can see on the ground, that's your horizon. As you go higher and higher, they would claim that it would curve into this shape, the horizon, and leave you with this, a sphere. Well, the place this picture's claimed to have come from violates natural law. This isn't a picture of your Earth, because it's claimed to have come from space. This area, this black bit, is claimed to be 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum. And this gas, which is high pressure, attempting to expand in all directions, because that's what gas does, would fill this space. Instantaneously disperse into the availability of this 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum, a space for the gas to fill, automatically making this picture, the first opener that they've got, fake.
Yeah, the other thing to remember is when the ball earthers say, vacuums don't suck, Nathan. That might well be true, but pressures do push, right? So vacuums might not suck, but pressure does push. That's the bit that they ignore. So they create this straw man or red herring argument. But every time they say that, tell them that vacuums might not suck, but pressure does push. And then all of a sudden there's a problem.
It's just riddled with begging the question.
So why do people believe this? And is it even worth even getting into a debate over? A number of ancient cultures believed that Earth was flat because simply they didn't know any better. But today, there remain people who still believe the Earth is flat, despite centuries of evidence proving the contrary. So why do they believe this, and is it even worth getting into debate over? Surprisingly, while there are mountains of proof, oh really, the discussion around the idea of flat Earth, interesting that they've got no capital for the F, but do for the E. Anyway, has nothing to do at all with... See, that would be enough to dismiss the whole article, wouldn't it? Anyway, has nothing to do with evidence at all.
Not keeping up with the flat Earth debate.
Oh, that just because that'll slip some people by. Anthony saying that minor error is enough to discredit the entire article, majoring on the minors on our part, just for farcical. He's not actually saying that, he's just comparing.
Yeah, just making the point, yeah. But
I thought that picture was super convincing, though, you showed, Nathan.
Look at what it says. It says, surprisingly, while there are mountains of proof, the discussion around the idea of flat Earth has nothing at all to do with evidence, really. Hello. Anyway, to put it bluntly, we know more about the curvature of Earth than almost any other topic in the realm of physical science. There are so many experiments, observations, and demonstrations that have time and time again revealed the curve of Earth. Really? Where are they? Notice there's no citation here. It doesn't give you a list to them all. It just makes this is like when you'd ask Rumpus for supporting evidence when he says that, what did he say yesterday? He said something yesterday and I asked him for evidence. Oh, it was he said all forces are effects, and I said, have you got any evidence? And this is the same example. There's no citation here, and it all starts with the horizon. As objects recede from you, they begin to look smaller, yes, and slowly disappear in a very unique way. First, their bottoms become hidden, and then their tops. If you've ever watched a ship on the horizon, you've seen this for yourself. No, you haven't. You think you might have done because someone told you that was the case in an article. But if you actually go and do it, they all get mishmashed at the horizon. It all becomes a bit gobbledygook. That's what really happens. Similarly, from a great distance, all the tops of tall objects like mountains are visible well before their bases. Yeah, because there's no mountains in the foreground blocking them. Is that not the case? Earth's atmosphere is capable of playing funny tricks on our eyes, with different layers of air bending light into interesting directions. No, it's always down if you're on a ball on their model. It's not into interesting directions, is it? It's always down. This phenomena, a side effect of Earth's curvature, isn't a surefire guarantee of our planet's curve.
Whoa. Side effect of Earth's curvature, meaning we beg the question that 7/6 of the radius is what refraction is. And a side effect of Earth's curvature, you mean you assume it and then bend light around it? Side effect? Nah, begging the question fallacy. My bad, carry on.
But even if you can't look to the horizon for evidence, you can look up. Oh yeah, what's that going to teach you? What's that going to prove? Different stars are visible from different parts of Earth. Yeah, it's called proximity. But anyway, in two very particular ways. First, there is the division between the northern and the southern hemispheres. So you can see Polaris, the star nearly directly above North geographic pole of Earth, quite easily at northern latitudes. But as you travel south, approaching the equator, Polaris sinks lower and lower towards the horizon. Once you've crossed that boundary, you can't see it at all. It's blocked by the curve of the Earth in that direction. Nathan, you're about an hour and a half away from me. I can't see you. Are you over the curve of the Earth, or are the buildings and stuff in the way that I can't see because of?
Only if you follow the steps that they've taken you through in terms of the assumption that you're on a sphere to begin with. So while they describe it, they first tell you in this story that you're going to be travelling antipodal on a hemisphere. So you're going to assume that when you travel from A to B, you've travelled antipodal from where you began, even though you in no way, shape or form experience this beyond assuming it in this statement. So they just assume Earth's a sphere by using this word hemisphere. All right, so when we go south, we're actually travelling antipodal because I'm assuming a hemisphere. Well, this is a really good way of debating us. We're going to really struggle with these tips. Yeah, definitely. Get a pen and paper, Globers. Oh, what am I saying? I should have played that very differently. These are terrible. I think all the Globers should write these down and come here with these. The other thing I wanted to point out, just before I let Anthony go on again, it says, Paul explains, how did the universe begin? And then it shows you on the opener where it really began. On a mobile above your head with mummy and daddy telling you that the sky is a vacuum and those are lights and we're like them. We're a ball. Why? Well, because I assume when describing travelling south, I'm travelling antipodal. I don't experience it. I assume it because I was told to assume I'm on a hemisphere. But that's where it really began, on a mobile above your bed. The genuine "where did the universe begin" is a story that's only come about in the last 100 years. The Big Bang's only been a story for less than a lifetime of my grandmother. Unbelievable. But yet they'll tell it you when you had it above your bed so you could conceptualise this begging the question fallacy. Sky's not a vacuum. This area around this ball Earth depicted on a mobile isn't a vacuum for the gas that's apparently attached to it not dispersing to fill. No, it would just fill it. Gas expands in all directions, making this entire assertion with a mobile nonsense. And the real place the universe began, in your mind's eye. Feel free, Anthony, if you've got any more.
Yep.
Similarly, as you travel south, new constellations await your delighted gaze, ones that would be completely obscured by Earth curve if you stayed up north. There's another trick you can play too. Yeah, notice they admit it's a trick. If you live in an especially flat area, well, there's curve everywhere, isn't there, right? You'll be able to see stars down to the horizon, but no further because Earth is in your way. But if you travel up, say, to the top of a mountain, you get a better vantage point and you can see stars further down than when you could before. In fact, the 19th century Abbasid Caliph al-Mamun, didn't George Bush take him out in 2010? Anyway, sent an expedition to do exactly that and used these observations to measure the circumference of the Earth. That's really persuasive, that, Nathan. I think I'll use all these arguments.
I think we should definitely advise the Globers to use all these arguments. They should come here and tell us all about how they travel antipodal and how they assume that the physical geometric sphere edge horizon blocks boats and buildings. And if you go up higher, the physical globe Earth, physical sphere edge gets a bit further away with its physical nature, blocking less because of how physical the horizon is, right? Because they're telling you it's physical, right? Yeah, we've debunked that, though, haven't we? We've got this argument called the black swan that absolutely annihilates the assertion that you've got a physical geometric sphere edge for a horizon. We're also told in rebuttal that we wouldn't expect to see a physical horizon.
No, don't tell them we debunked. Shh. Yeah. Use these arguments, please. Come in.
Yeah, get them down.
You don't have to uphold
anything. Yeah, try it out.
Yeah, Chocolate, we don't have to keep it a secret. They're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, they do it anyway, Arwin. Correct. This is meaningless.
Because they are the reification cavalry. Now, we're here in this sort of World War I situations in trenches. Like Osho and Rumpus, they're trench squatters because they don't go, they just stay where they are, get shot at, and then they crawl back in the trench. And now the trench cavalry, the cavalry is coming, the reification cavalry is coming. And they're not going to listen to these guys telling them, like, yeah, we're already doing that. And then why are you not in the next trench then? They're not going to ask it. No, they're going to storm straight onto the flat land and get right in our crossfire of the flat earth debate machine gunning. It's all going to go down.
No, all we get is the same stupid people that complain that open and closed is the same thing.
It's not. It's a violation of the law of non-contradiction and an identity
At
violation.
the end of yesterday's show.
What about it?
Yeah, I read that flatsoid and I was drinking coffee. I almost spit it out when I read that. The Earth is a closed system that is open. Wow.
I've just realised there was another couple of paragraphs. Let me sit this back on. I thought that was the end of it. Play.
There's more.
Whoosh. So here we go. Circles everywhere. You might not be able to mount such a scientific investigation to your nearest mountain peak, but there is something you can do to witness the curvature of the Earth in the comfort of your own backyard. You just have to be lucky and believe. During a lunar eclipse, the Earth passes between the sun and the moon, allowing the Earth to cast its shadow on the moon. That shadow is always, always, always a circle, no matter where you are on the planet, no matter the timing of the eclipse. Always. Actually, that's not even true. I've seen the lunar eclipse and it looks like somebody's monthly, like a woman's monthly, this red blancmange thing in the sky. That's not even accurate, that.
Also, an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. It's an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy where they state they're begging the question fallacy first. So they're telling you Earth is a sphere. Then they're telling you about an observation that you can make. and then they're asserting that the observation you can make is as per their description, therefore Earth is a sphere. So that would be formulated as such. If P, Earth a sphere, then this lunar observation, Q, lunar observation, therefore Earth a sphere, P. If P, then Q, therefore P. Also known as affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. So that's what they've got. To just tell you it's a sphere, make up a little story about what a light in the sky does when you assume you're viewing a rock between a spherical Earth. You're automatically assuming the very premise that you're trying to prove with this.
But you know what I find funny is that
Hey, Anthony.
they did the same thing that Michelle lady did, right? The first thing they talk about is boats at the horizon, right? Doing whatever they're doing at the horizon. And then immediately after that, we go straight to the sky and the stars. But why do you do that if there's so many experiments and observations that prove that the Earth is actually curved?
These aren't experiments.
Why would you do
the
that?
ones that prove the curve rather than the ones that aim in the sky?
Ones what? These are not
Hey,
experiments.
Anthony.
Hold on. It says scientific there. Where can you just read that part of that sentence again? It specifically said scientific.
Where was that?
About 2
Oh,
paragraphs.
yeah, here we go. It says, you might not be able to mount such a scientific investigation into your nearest mountain peak, but there is something you can do to witness the curvature of Earth in the comfort of your own backyard.
Stop.
You just have to be looking.
Yeah, so no. Their implication is that there's been scientific validity added to this assertion. This question that's being posed, and they're claiming you can do something about answering in your own backyard, is not open to scientific inquiry. This is not a cause and effect relationship. This is not an observed phenomena. This is not science.
I thought that's what he
Anthony.
said.
Go on, Tenth.
Can't prove it.
Yeah,
scientifically.
you were talking about eclipses, right? So wasn't there many instances where the shadow is inverted?
Shadow?
And if it,
What do you mean shadow? What do you mean shadow?
well, the image that they say is the Earth in the way of the...
What? So if I
Other
beg the
objects.
question that Earth is in the way causing a shadow, that's a presupposition
what-
that A, it's
No,
a
I know
shadow,
that.
B, Earth is causing it. These are all presuppositions. So usually you say shadow.
Correct.
What do you mean shadow? How do you know it's a shadow? And what's causing
I
the
don't
shadow?
know it's a
Oh, my
shadow.
presupposition Earth is getting in the way of it.
But in the video, they say it's a shadow. I'm just referencing what they say. And when they said it was a shadow, it was inverted, and they were perplexed as to why. Remember that one?
So what you're saying is, based on what we see of a lunar eclipse, while we should be causing a shadow to go down, it's actually going up, which is in contradiction of what they claim is a shadow caused by a spherical Earth blocking the light from the sun between it and the moon. Well, that's a presupposition that Earth's a sphere in a sky vacuum with the sun at the centre, the very premise of the model that they're trying to prove with this shit. So we're going to assume all of that and then say that that shadow then proves all the shit I just assumed to describe how it is a shadow. That's just begging the question, affirming the consequent as described.
No, I'm just saying when they
Wow.
bury themselves that deep into all that begging the question, that the last thing you look at and say, then why is it upside down? Oops, back to the drawing board.
Yeah, you're saying even within their begging the question, affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy, their Q statement to assert that it's a shadow and it's going to perform the shadow, however a shadow behaves, is also debunked within the Q statement. Now, to be perfectly honest, you're right, but that's just what they want. So long as you don't point out that they've begged the question and assume the very thing they're trying to prove in the P statement, better to argue about the Q statement, right? That's what they want.
Yeah, I agree, but it's funny either way.
Yeah,
just
look
gonna-
at this. This is interesting. Arguing from evidence.
Hold that thought.
right?
Just a quick shout out to a super chatter. Sorry, Anthony. Shout out to Retrobill. I just sat through a YouTube ad for shoes which began with the words, according to fashion scientists.
Was that Neil deGrasse Tyson that he was referring to in the shoes article, the fashion scientist?
He's
Because
in
everybody
Good
seems
one.
to be a scientist. these
Fashion
days.
scientist.
Yeah, everybody seems to be a fashion scientist.
Fashion is a science now. Wow.
No, it isn't. Science
Shit done
establishes,
changed in 2020.
science establishes the cause of natural phenomena.
You just
It's not anything to do with
you
fashion.
just have to add the word scientist somewhere and you sound clever.
Yeah. Let's go with this one. Arguing from evidence, given that we're all asking for evidence for like Earth curve or whatever. However, I don't think this discussion is really about the actual evidence. What evidence? Or the scientific process, the one that you guys abuse. People who believe that the Earth is flat aren't coming to that conclusion from the same types of observations. They instead believe that we are being misled and lied to, that scientists, including me, yeah, definitely including you, want you to believe that the Earth is round despite its flatness.
So this is hold on. This is a stereotyping
despite
fallacy.
its flatness?
Hold on. This is a stereotyping fallacy and a baseless assertion fallacy. So they're asserting that all flat earthers hold this viewpoint. That's a baseless assertion and a stereotyping fallacy.
It's also an embedded confession.
Oh, okay, go on.
Yeah.
Well, it says, and the answer, where did I read that then? Have I lost it? It was that last, oh, there we go.
Just below the answer.
They instead believe that we're being misled and lied to, that scientists, including me, want you to believe that the Earth is round despite its flatness. That is an admission.
Yep, that's what I heard.
You can't have it round if it's flat.
Read it once more. I can see.
They instead believe that we are being misled and lied to, that scientists, including me, want you to believe that the Earth is round despite its flatness.
Yeah, that's an embedded confession. You're right.
Yep.
Unless you want to read
its flatness? What flatness? The
Unless
one you just told us doesn't exist because it's curved? That flatness?
The word round and argue that because I'm assuming that they mean curved when they say round, but obviously dartboards and pizzas, they're also round but flat. So unless you want to focus on the round bit and say it's a bit ambiguous, but that to me is an admission.
Certainly sounds
anyway.
Like it. They're facing it as though we would expect, or they would expect the entirety of flat earthers to believe this, is how it's paraphrased, and I call that a baseless assertion stereotyping fallacy. But after that, it's an embedded confession.
Does seem that way, yeah. So the question isn't why do people believe in a flat earth, but rather why do people believe in a conspiracy? And the answer is the same reason it always is: a lack of trust. Many people don't trust the society around them. What about proof? Many people don't trust the society around them, most notably the representatives of that society. Like the masonry? But anyway, that trust often falls even further when it comes to elite representatives of that society, which includes government officials, members of academia, and scientists like me. This sounds like it's been written by Professor Bill. I wonder if he drives a Mercedes. By claiming that the Earth is flat, people are really expressing a deep distrust of scientists and science itself. So if you find yourself talking to a flat earther, skip the evidence and arguments and ask yourself how you can build trust. Learn more by listening to the episode How Do We Know the Earth is Curved on the Ask a Spaceman podcast available on iTunes.
Hold on. Okay, fine. So, again, another embedded confession. You might as well paraphrase that to ask yourself why flat earthers can't keep the faith.
Yeah. That's literally what they're saying. And they're also saying, like, forget about the evidence and forget, what was the other thing they said? Skip the evidence and arguments and ask yourself how you can build the trust. That's basically cult talk.
They have to tell you that because the first thing a flat earther is going to do is ask you, where the hell is your evidence?
Correct.
For this curve.
Oh dear. It's not
oh dear.
Science is writing like this.
This just came out like the other day.
This is
terrible. And I was like, wait a minute, is this them sending out like the help? Apparently, because now you're giving credence to this. Because you got on one side, you got Neil deGrasse saying, I won't even debate this topic because I have the objective truth. And then here you got space.com helping everybody out with how do you debate a flat earther? It's incredible.
And to summarize how, ignore the evidence and keep the faith.
Yeah. For me, that's the most important line there. So if you find yourself talking to a flat earther, skip the evidence. Yeah, that's because you haven't got any, and arguments. Yeah, because they're all logically fallacious. And ask yourself how you can build trust. Let's build our trust with NASA. How do we build our trust with NASA, guys? We just take another dollop of truth from them and believe that SpaceX is really going up to the vacuum of space. Oh, that's how we do it.
They should have given them some proper tips. If you're debating a flat earther and the evidence is coming your way from their side, chant about gravity over the top of them so you don't have to listen to it. Should someone try and hold you to account, stick your fingers in the ears and hum.
Yeah. It's like the rumpus technique, isn't it? Just continue talking.
Yeah,
By the way,
sad.
Can I just clarify? Yesterday, right at the end of the show, when Rumpus joined, I don't know if he actually heard what I said, but I'm going to say it again so that people listening can understand the point. There's a direct contradiction, right? Rumpus argues that all forces are effects, and they're clearly not. They're not similes. They're antonyms. You can't have a force and an effect as the same thing. One is the thing that causes the other, right? So they're not the same. You can't conflate the two. Now, Rumpus tells everybody that weight is a force because it's measured in newtons, and it's calculated by multiplying mass by the acceleration due to gravity. Because it's measured in newtons, that's considered to be a force. But he also says that mass is not a force. But in direct contradiction, he will also argue that mass attracts mass in the Cavendish experiment. Now, if you're quite new to the topic, you're going to come across the Cavendish experiment and you're going to think that it sounds credible and it sounds believable and all that. And they will literally argue that mass attracting mass is the proof for gravity until you tell them that it's not. And then they can't use that argument anymore. But the fact that they use that argument in the first place when they know that it's incorrect just tells you that they're all being dishonest. But he tells some people that mass attracts mass. But he tells us that mass is not a force. It's just a number. It's a scalar. It's a measurement. So on the one hand, he's telling you that mass is not a force, but then on the other, he's using it to argue for Cavendish. You can't hold the two positions at the same time. But he will literally argue that if you're not far enough down the conversation to be able to tell him that he can't argue for mass attracting mass because gravity is not a force anymore, according to Einstein. So just be aware of that direct contradiction there, guys. It's a really good one to catch them all out on because they all do the same thing.
And it sounds like this whole section could be titled "Embrace the Fiction in Our Science."
Yeah. Well, praise the sun or his sun equivalent.
We will. That's fine. We are more than happy to embrace the fiction of the current rhetoric of Einsteinian bending geodesics in space-time. What we are not happy to do is accept 105-year, out-of-date, superseded rhetoric that's been replaced by Einstein. Because that is not their argument. It's no longer their rhetoric, and their priests are telling them, as are we. Now, we'll accept their non-science, so we can pummel it much faster. Einstein's so much quicker to pummel. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No.
No. Bit of size. P waves and S waves is the best they've got, isn't it? They come up with P waves and S waves and then claim that these things could not possibly be if it wasn't for the shape of the Earth being a sphere. And then when you ask them to explain it, you realise that they're describing what is essentially an interpretation based on squiggles on paper. Now, them interpretations may be right or may be wrong, but how would you ever know? Because someone says that they're right, they're an expert. Oh, right, okay, so we just appeal to that authority and say it must be true. No, that's not what we do.
But that there, right there, that's the problem, man. Flat earthers aren't appealing to the authority. We lack trust. Remember the article? It's telling everybody we don't trust people, man.
Gotta have faith.
I got something for the South Africans.
Baby.
I got something for the South Africans. Oikikos.
But what did he say?
Oikikos.
You're going to have to explain that one, I'm sorry.
It has to be marshmallows or something in South Africa.
It looks like a big round black pot that you put over the fire and you cook your meat and your vegetables in there for about like a big stew for like 6 hours on the fire. It's the closest you can get to a molten iron quartz.
Right.
Thanks for that obscure South African reference, because obviously that's going to go over everyone's heads, isn't it?
Yeah, it went over mine.
Hey, you've got quite a few South African supporters.
Ready? Shout out to everyone in South Africa. Woo, 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 woo.
Hey guys in South Africa, tell us if you can prove that when you look into the southern, the southern rotation point. Tell us if you can prove that you're looking in the same direction as a guy in Australia or a guy in South America. Because I know that they say that the definition of south is looking at the southern rotation point. But how do you know that you're looking at the same point relative to your neighbor when you both think that you're looking in the same direction because they define that as south? Because they assume that we're on a ball. But how can we validate that? Because they need it to be directly south, and both observers need to be looking in the same direction.
Get some clarity
there's
on your
no
terms.
Absolute reference points, so we can't really validate it.
Hold on, let's get some clarity on what you're describing with your words. What's south? What does that mean?
Well, this is my point. What is south? Now,
That's
up,
what I
down,
asked
left,
you.
right, forward, and backwards are defined as relative directions, right? So there are no absolute directions, but they tell you that the south is defined as the southern rotation point.
That's wrong. That's wrong. There is one absolute direction.
Up and down.
No, that's absolutely relative.
Magnetic north, perhaps?
Yeah, spot on.
Okay,
the problem is, though, apparently it shifts with something called declination. So although it's an absolute direction or an absolute reference point, it's a moving target. So I'm not sure whether that would satisfy the definition for absolute.
The declination aspect being applied in the south, right?
Well, all over the country, all over the plane, everywhere's got a declination value. Some of the, like in England, for instance, it's only 1 degree east or west. I can't remember which, but there's only the 1 degree. But if you're in like South Africa, then you're going to be looking, I think it's 13 degrees east, or it might be 13 degrees west, but you're not looking south. So they tell you that you got to make a correction to your compass, because although there's a rotation point in the sky, it's not actually pointing south. So they say that your compass isn't telling you the truth. You need to adjust for something called declination, which then raises the question, well, how do you prove that you're looking in the same direction relative to the other guy? Because you haven't got a reference point anymore. You're believing that your compass is inaccurate for some reason. And then you've got to say, well, how do you know that you're looking south relative to your other observer? Not south relative to the rotation point, south relative to the other observer.
So quick shout out to, hold on, just one sec. Quick shout out to Cami Nodal, who about 5 years ago sent me a copy of the azimuthal equidistant quadrupole projection. And ever since I've had it, I've used it as the thumbnail for Flat Earth debate. So next time you look at the thumbnail, it's obviously got people over the top of it and a couple of debaters, but that is actually the azimuthal equidistant global projection of the quadrupole system. Just to give you an idea of how messed up that is as an idea to use, and why you would end up with declination when using that idea.
It's all a bit of a hodgepodge.
Yeah, well, Anthony, like I was saying, at night where I am now in the bush, the Milky Way is right on top of my head.
Cool.
Say that again, I didn't catch it.
The Milky Way, it's directly on top of me in the bush.
Sure, but specifically the southern rotation point, if you're looking towards the horizon at a particular bearing, how do you know that the guy that is in Australia or in South America is also looking to the horizon at the same bearing that you are relative to each other? Because I know that you're referencing the southern rotation point, but that assumes that we're on a sphere and they're both at the southern pole. Well, if you're not on a sphere, then why they've got to be the same.
You'll be looking at the Southern Cross.
Southern rotation point.
The Southern Cross.
No.
Not the cross.
If you're looking at the Southern Cross.
No.
Yeah, the Southern Cross, you'll know the direction of the Southern Cross will point to the southern direction.
Yeah, it'll point
That's right.
to
You're right.
Point to an empty area that they claim there's a star called Sigma Octantis, I believe.
Yep, supposed to.
But there's nothing there.
Oh, there is. It's just a very low magnitude star.
So they say.
And when you're well, I contacted the Tasmanian Astronomy Society asking them to produce evidence of Octantis, and they couldn't do it. He said, you can only see it with your naked eye. And I'm like, you're kidding me? You're telling me that an astronomy department in Tasmania can't prove that Octantis actually exists? And he told me that you've got to see it with the naked eye. He said, because it's too dim. And I thought, I don't believe that for a moment, but I couldn't get evidence that it exists.
Sure.
I'm told to believe that it's just a low magnitude star.
Unless we get any challenge from Discord, which I'll pause for a moment to see if we do, I'm more than happy to say that there is a point around which it appears the stars rotate in the south. Now, the Southern Cross would also be one of them that seems to point towards that central location about which the stars rotate. But there is no pole star as such. Would anybody disagree with that?
No.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
Anybody in Discord? Feel free, you can disagree. No? Was there any more for any more, Anthony?
I have something for Anthony.
I
world,
have something to add. Sorry.
Well,
on the world, could they say you could see it with the naked eye because it's so dim, and then when you use something that's better than the eye for long distance, you can't see it? That doesn't sound right.
I agree completely. It's ridiculous.
double speak nonsense. Go ahead, Brian.
Hey, Nathan. Hey, everybody. Just on the subject of magnetic declination, this is also a bit of a personal plug for me, which I have no shame about.
That's okay.
I made a video in the past few days about how the tides work. 3 factors on that would be causing the tides. And magnetic declination has to take in what they call true north. Now, you've already maybe spoken about this. I missed that part of the show. But it has to take in an angle from what they call true north. True north is just where all the longitude lines meet. So it takes in an angle from there to find your correct declination from what would be actually true north, which would be magnetic north. And the thing about it is that that's just globe latitude and longitude nonsense. But magnetic north might very well move a little bit, but I don't believe for a moment it's moving around like they say it is. I don't believe that for a moment. I believe that we're given that idea that it's moving around to this degree because of the fact that we're taking angles from what they call true north to when we're trying to find out our magnetic declination. And on top of that, it's the layout of all the lands. It's all based around the AE map and the globe, because once they're using longitude and latitude, it's all globe. So the layout of the lands where people think things are, as opposed to where they would actually be, is different. So that's a big part of it. But I do believe it's very possible that the magnetic field in the north is moving, and I detailed some of this in that video, simply because the oceans are moving and the oceans are creating. Sorry, Nathan.
Nobody interrupted you. It's all good. I've got your video up for the audience as well. It's just playing through as you talk, just so you know.
Oh, good. The oceans are creating an opposing magnetic field because water is diamagnetic, and salt water, because salt is such a good conductor of electricity, the magnetic field. A magnetic field creates a magnetic charge, and a moving magnetic charge, which would be happening within the oceans, creates a magnetic field. So you have two magnetic fields basically working off of each other. And you also have a sun and moon above us, and we don't know what effect they're having. We know that the sun is causing convection within the oceans, which also causes movements. So you have two magnetic fields fighting each other, basically, is what goes on. There's physical demonstration there for this, and I show it in the video. So I can't say 100% that's exactly what's happening, but I can show with physical demonstration in my video that that a magnetic field creates a magnetic charge, a moving magnetic charge creates a magnetic field, that convection creates movements within the oceans, that water is diamagnetic, and that salt water has that a magnetic field has a much more turbulent effect on salt water because of the salt being such a good conductor of electricity. So you have two magnetic fields working off each other and constantly fighting each other, basically. And it's very possible that the magnetic field in the north is moving due to the movement of the oceans, or maybe due to the sun or moon or whatever. But there definitely is more going on there than we're led to believe. I won't go into too much. I'll leave people watch the video, rather than because I could be talking for another 20 minutes. But that's the basics of it.
But the thing is, it sounds like you're describing a self-perpetuating machine, and there are no such things as them. They don't exist, so therefore we can dismiss what you're describing because they don't exist.
Yeah, well, it's funny, you see, because the only self-perpetuating machines that I've ever seen that actually worked were involving electric charge and magnetic fields. And we have a creator of this place. Now, as I said yesterday, Anthony, to yourself and Chocolate and Arwen, the person who makes the video game is not subject to the rules of the video game. So what we think is possible and what actually is possible, like we have to be within a completely renewal, like we have to be living in a self-automated, enclosed dynamic system that has to have some kind of perpetual motion working within it in some way, shape or form, because everything works within everything. Everything has a reason. It's like every nut. It's like every part of our system is like a nut or a bolt or whatever in an engine, if you understand what I mean. So it all works off of each other. And yes, we can have a perpetual motion system going on. Only a couple of years ago, just for as a reference, a couple of years ago, there was a guy in Ireland here. I think it was going back in the 90s. He created a magnetic engine that works off of a magnetic field and electric charge. And he was bought out by the oil companies or whatever. But he claimed that there was a totally perpetual motion machine, more or less. Do you know what I mean? Now, I don't know, but that's that would be the closest you would get, because a magnetic field creates an electric charge. And if you can make that electric charge move, it'll create another magnetic field. You know, it's like, so something is going on here, but there's a lot more going on than we are led to believe. It's certainly not, we know it's not the moon doing this with the tides. And would the movement of the waters creating and opposing a magnetic field, and with the sun and the moon, we don't know what's happening there. So it's very possible that, just going back to the original point, that the magnetic field in the north is moving around. But as in the field moves around. Maybe the magnet or whatever is not moving, but the field is moving around. But the whole magnetic declination thing is a farce, because that involves the longitude and latitude lines, which are just taken off of the sky. And the point in the north and the south of the globe, they're not in the sky. You know, those parts aren't in the sky. The use of the sky for navigation, which is where longitude and latitude came from, the parts where the longitude lines meet in the north and in the south on the globe, they're not in the sky. They're added in. The rest of it for navigation is used. But when you go above 70 degrees or below 70 degrees, parallel, I mean, how much more? That's mostly what the latitude and longitude using the sky navigation system was used for, because ships didn't travel above 70 and below 70 because of ice. Right. You know, so
we're gonna have to get into this more in the after show. But just before I round out, any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
No, but we'll believe it anyway.
Any more? With that, I'll say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where I bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a day! What a lovely day!